Thank you very much for the warm welcome. I am equally delighted to be back again. It's been a while, been back and forth to America, but now I'm back in the UK and very grateful to be here again. Today, before we start the talk, I wanted to just do an exercise. It's about 2 minutes, very short. If some of you have seen this exercise before, say nothing, keep stumm, say nothing. And for the rest of you, I'm just going to knock out the front lights and play a video just about 1 or 2 minutes. But since this talk is about Darshan, about the seeing, being seen, what does it mean to truly see, I thought I would test your powers of observation first. So the exercise is basically to observe a simple basketball game in miniature form. And all you have to do is count how many times the white team pass the basketball, all right? Count how many times the white team pass the basketball. It's just an exercise in observation and concentration. So I'll say no more, ask someone to hit the front light so you can see. And in silence, count.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes did you count? The correct answer is 15.
All right. Turn off the light. How many people saw the gorilla?
This video is from research by Daniel Simon and Christopher.
Sorry, so how many people did not see the gorilla? Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. It's like when you're focused on one thing or your mind is telling you to do something, you miss a gorilla. A man in a gorilla walked across the stage, did this, and walked through, and you didn't see it. I was blown away by this. It's a psychological experiment, but it's a brilliant experience of when we're so convinced we see something, or it's like how limited we are in our observations. So I just throw that in there as a starter to the whole background to seeing, sight, what it means to truly see. So today's talk is that. Darshan, the sacred act of seeing and being seen. What does it mean to truly see and to be truly seen? In Hindu traditions, darshan is far more than ordinary sight. From the Sanskrit word to behold, drish, it is the sacred exchange of seeing a deity, but being seen in return. It's an exchange. From Jagannatha's vast, all-encompassing eyes and Shiva's third eye to Krishna's transforming gaze, Hindu wisdom reveals the power of divine wisdom, divine vision, which is also wisdom. As Diana Eck observes in her book entitled Darshan, this exchange lies at the heart of Hinduism. But true darshan requires grace. And this talk is to try and explore or discover a little of how this ancient practice brings fresh insight into presence and connection today. So that's the blurb. And just to say a few words about why I thought about this talk. When they ask me, can you give a talk in Leicester, it's always, what shall I say, what will I talk about? But actually, at the time, I had been thinking about this game that children play. I saw it in India, I saw it in Ireland, and at the time I was asked for this talk, I'd been thinking about this simple early child game of peekaboo, where the child closes their eyes. You know, I'm sure you've played it yourselves with your children. Hands up who's played peekaboo. Pretty much everybody here. It's cross-cultural, it's an international game, it's before language is developed, before words, and everywhere this game is played. And it struck me just thinking about, what is this delight of a child to go peekaboo, experimenting with being invisible because they think they've disappeared, and yet trust that someone's there. Ah, they're still there. I see you, I don't see you. I see you, I don't see you. And it's usually a joyful game. It's usually, you know, it's an exchange of a raw, unfettered, uncluttered view. The child has not so many facades or postures learned in life yet. It's just, I see you, I don't. So this made me thinking about, what does it mean to truly see before we develop all our masks, before we develop our ways of putting our face on for the world, knowing how to deal with other people, knowing how to blag and to pretend everything's okay when it's not. But all these fronts or facades we live in, we become quite expert at it. And it made me think about the raw purity of that connection. And 3 points came to mind. One was that we're born into an existence of relationship. So our identity is wrapped up in connection with another person. It's like we don't know ourselves unless we have that connection. And it's an exchange. It's a give and it's a take. It's a, I see you, you see me, but it's a back and a forth. It's a give and a take. And these relationships expand into a network of relationship, like of a community of interconnected connections that expand as we develop and grow. And no one of us exists in isolation. We're all bound up in both visible and invisible connections. The visible are the people around us. The invisible are those who have departed before us, the DNA that we carry, the blessings that we have propelled us through life, the ancestors, the teachers, the devas. You know, it's embedded in Hindu tradition, the idea of the 5 debts. We're born into debts, invisible kind of boons that have been given to us from those beyond our visible sight. So this interconnected network of relationships that we're bound up in. And the third point was this, is how is it that we can truly see through all this different cluttered interconnections and coverings and surface reality and what's beneath the surface? And naturally I thought of, that's exactly what Hindu traditions try to do. And the word darshan came to mind. And the root of the word darshan is drish, to see. And it carries the multi-layered meanings of this, different layers of seeing. On the one hand, drish, to see, means everyday, ordinary sight. I see you, I don't see you. Hello, I see you. But drish also carries the import of seeing beneath the surface realities. And I'm sure you're familiar with the 6 philosophical systems in India called the 6 darshans, which is the 6 ways of seeing, the 6 viewpoints on reality, the 6 ways of understanding who we are, what the world's made up of, and how we should act in it. So very interesting, it's ways of viewing. And the third understanding of darshan, which we're probably all most familiar with, is the sacred exchange between the murti, the deity, and the devotee who visits the temples. That darshan takes place all over India, regardless of the traditional or philosophical backgrounds. It's one of the most normal practices throughout all the Hindu traditions. Of course, there are those who emphasize it more than others, but it's almost impossible to avoid. So that site is exactly what we saw with the child, is the exchange of a look. But the deepest, most penetrating, most beyond surface level realities is the deities is considered to, I see you. I see you like nobody else can see you. And you stand there and you are seen. And it's this give and take. It's the deity gives the darshan and you receive the darshan. The give and take is that reciprocal relationship is there. So those three darshan: surface vision, just to see ordinary reality, to see beneath the surface, and developed into philosophical ways of seeing what's the underpinning to life, developed into yoga, sankhya, nyaya, visheshika, and the Vedanta, the Purva and the Uttaramimamsa, these great philosophical traditions built on trying to see more clearly. And then emerging later and continuing up to today, this practice of getting beyond surface reality by seeing the deity, standing before the divine gaze of the Lord. So I thought first we looked at the beginnings of human life. I thought the beginnings of Hindu traditions, right back in the early days of the Vedas and the Vedic ritual. This term drish, to see, described the wise sages of those early days. They were called the drashtu, the seers, those who could see beyond the surface reality, who had the ability to see more deeply in this way. And through their meditations, through their ritual practices, through their ponderings, they were given revelations, they were given insights, they were given visions, they were given understandings. Because actually visions is another way of saying to understand something. Oh, I see means I understand. You were given insights, ways of understanding who we are, what the world around us is, and what the best way to act in the world is. These were the insights of the sages. So, kind of, since there's many things written about their teachings, but I thought about what three things were the insights, the main sort of visions or insights of the sages. And interestingly enough, it correlated with the early child peekaboo idea. The first one was that there is more to life than meets the eye, that behind the invisible blindness there is a more enduring reality. There's something deeper than the surface reality we all engage with on a day-to-day basis. There's a visible and an invisible reality. Second, the nature of the entire cosmos is relational. None of us exists in isolation or disconnected from people, places, forces, influences. We're constantly being connected and influenced by other people and other things and other forces. So relationship and interconnection is who we are. And the third idea the sages saw with this insight was that the whole of the world is made up of a give and take reality. Having intuited, having witnessed or seen these hidden interconnections all around us. Like, for example, they saw that the way the sun cooks the whole cosmos in the cauldron of time. We're all being cooked in the cauldron of time, and we're all being transformed by time. The connection is also there with the fire on the earth, that in the ritual fire, the fire is burning, and the priests put offerings into the fire, and the fire cooks, transforms the offerings, and sends them to the heavens. And within the individual, on a personal level, there's a fire of digestion, and you put food into the fire of digestion. What does it do? It cooks, and it transforms the food into energy. So these sages saw these connections between the fire in the sky, the fire on the earth, and the fire in the self. And it's like, wow, there's a connection. They're not separate things. And this was the biggest aha from this they developed, was that the other hidden connection, the most profound hidden connection that endures through all Hindu traditions today, is that not just the fire, the life force within all living beings is not different from the life that animates the entire universe, the cosmos, the world around us, what makes plants grow, what the seasons change. This life, aham brahmasmi, it's like, it's not different than the life within us. And the sages kind of made sutras of these verses. Here it said, that is who you are. You are spirit. You are not just your surface self, just your body or your mind or your senses. Whoops. You are spirit. Stay. And so, Tattvamasi from the Chandogya Upanishad, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. I am Atma Brahman, this self is Brahman. And this very famous one, Sarvam Kalavidam Brahman. This entire world is made up of spirit, is Brahman. They're not separate. So what they saw was that the visible reality and the invisible reality are absolutely connected. It's somehow just our eyes are being blocked by like the child's hands. The peekaboo thing is there. We're blocking them with our lack of knowledge, with our ignorance. But just like the game we watched, the basketball game, with our preconceptions, with our expectations, with whatever. Okay. It's that which stops us from seeing. You're looking for something in the world, so you cannot see what's actually going on. If you're looking for the basketball, you miss the gorilla. If you're looking for something in life, you miss the spiritual reality underpinning that really is who you are, really is what this life is. So, interestingly, back from those ancient days, today, the prayers that these drashtus, these sages, these seers prayed, are still prayed today. They're from the Rig Veda. You know this one? Would you like to recite it, Rick? Asato ma sad gamaya tamaso ma jyotir gamaya mritya. Exactly, it's still recited today, but this prayer encapsulates exactly that delving behind surface reality. What's the real? What's the true vision of reality? And yeah, just to get behind the hands, the blockages. Another one was this prayer here, because linked with the vision of interconnection, well, just go back to the sages, they had this vision of the whole world being like a web emanating from oneness, from Brahman. The whole world just emanates. Whoops, stay back. And it has this beautiful verse, as a spider sends forth its thread, and also another analogy, it's very famous, still used, as if sparks spring forth from the fire, so indeed do all the vital functions, all the worlds, all the gods, and all the beings spring forth from the Supreme. So this beautiful image of emanation, that we get so caught up in the clutter of the emanation that we miss the heart of the issue. And Again, the final prayer I'll say here is another one we say today. Basically, this idea of emanation, that even if things emanate from one, there is no diminishment, there is no depletion, there is no lessening of the source. And it's this Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. How many people know this verse? It's recited today, which I find astonishing. Both of those prayers are as relevant today as they were back when the same struggle to see beyond peripheral surface realities were there. So this idea that, again, wholeness, we're all part of something bigger than ourselves. None of us are just little isolated sparks. We belong to something bigger. And it's forgetting that, just shrinking down is, I guess, the peekaboo thing is putting the hands in front of our eyes and forgetting that connection with the bigger picture. All right, so that's back to the Vedic period. Moving on from those early days, this idea of trying to find the real, the true source of everything, and as I said, identified as Brahman, developed into the Puranic tradition, nurtured by the narratives of Shiva, of Vishnu and Devi, identifying Brahman as these deities. And the narratives, the stories, fueled the development of temple buildings from the early BC centuries onwards. And so since those very early BC days, building temples, visiting temples, taking darshan of the deity was the practice, probably one of the foremost practices of stepping out of ordinary daily reality and attempting to engage with the deeper truth of the self and of others. And you have this gaze of the deity, like Shiva, for example. He's empowered with his third eye, this forceful power that can destroy, it has the power to destroy a universe. And there's one story, I'm sure you're familiar with it, about after Shiva has lost Sati and he's grieving for her, there's a big demon needs to be dealt with in the universe. And the gods want him to have a son so that he can deal with the demon. So they send Kamarupa, Cupid, with his arrow to, arouse desire in Shiva so that he will beget a son. So Kamarupa comes ready to shoot with his Cupid arrow Shiva, and what happens? Yeah, Shiva just opens his third eye, and that's the end of poor old Kamarupa. Dust, ashes, gone. So this powerful glance of the Lord, it can destroy. It's beyond any, cosmic force we can imagine. We also have the stories in the Bhagavad Purana of the glance of Vishnu as the animating force that brings creation into being. He lies on the causal ocean, and it's just with one glance, he glances over pradhan, or dormant prakriti nature, and the whole of the world is animated into life with just one glance. So the Puranas fuel these narratives of the divine gaze of the Lord, and the idea is that it's constant, it never closes. And there's another story where Parvati, the wife of Shiva, tries to block his eyes, and what happens? Darkness befalls all the universes, because the gaze of the divine Lord is what animates and perpetuates all of reality. So those are just the kind of the background, the idea of the exchange, even in the ritual world of the Vedas, is that you recognize, back in those Vedic days, that insights were given and you would reciprocate or return, respond, give back by making offerings. Not just insights were given, the forces of nature gave you light and heat and food and shelter and a world and children, and there was a recognition that there's so many invisible things that are given to us. And at the heart of that whole worldview is that you don't just close your eyes and take that for granted. No, there's a return, a give and a take is how this world works. It's a system of exchange. So for all the gifts, you make offerings, you offer back. But that idea of give and take, just like the peekaboo thing, the my turn, your turn, the give and take, the relational reality continued in the Vedic time, so too in the Puranic narratives and in the going to temples. The exact idea of you go to a temple, the Lord gives you his darshan, and you take this darshan. And I've 3 stories just of visiting temples, and I'm sure you have. I hope to hear more from you. But that just make the points I want to make. And one was when I visited, it was back in 2029, I went to South India and I went to the Sri Rangam temple to see Sri Rangaswamy and Ranganath Swami, and it was an enormous queue. And this is the temple. Hands up here who's been to Sri Rangam. Okay. Where is it? It's in Tamil Nadu. It's about, I don't know, how far is it from Trichy? Tiruchirappalli? It's about 5 miles. It's not far from Trichy in Tamil Nadu, down in the south. And it's this vast complex. It's probably one of the biggest operating temples in India today. Vast. And associated with him is Ramanujacharya, is the 11th century great theologian of the Sri Vaishnava community. So it's a very famous temple and attracts a lot of people. So I wandered up there already to take darshan. And I queued, for huge big queues, but I was patient, I was going to queue. And in my mind, I had brought all my prayers on behalf of, I think it was even the CED at the time. I was going to pray for everybody, the OCHS and my parents, and I was going to ask for qualities of humility and understanding and truthfulness and the whole lot. I had I was going to pray because this was an extraordinary opportunity. Never been, maybe never get here again. So finally, the moment came and you're kind of jostled along the queues and it's all dark. It's very cavernous and dark in South Indian temples. You can hardly see anything. So I'm jostled to the front. The deity's, there's black there. He should be there. And I'm like, and I was out and I saw nothing. So that was my first experience. It's like I saw nothing but black. And the crowd just pushed on, and I was so disappointed. It was like, but I queued again. And I said, okay, I'm not coming down here without queuing again. And I realized I have to, fewer prayers, yeah?
How many hours in the queue?
At that time, I think it was a few hours. It was a few hours, maybe 3 hours in the queue. And then again, queued up. But I was determined, there's nothing else to do. I wanted to take darshan. So this time I reduced my prayer list, and it was going to be something like, please help me. I'm grateful for everything. Thank you. I'll go for the grateful line. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, I queued up. And again, the jostling crowds come up, and it's all cavernous and dark. Now, what I hadn't understood was how long he was. I don't know if you know Shiva, he lies on the causal ocean with an antishesh behind him. He's black, pitch black. And I was expecting him kind of to be looking at me like this, so I'm looking here, but actually he's all along here. And his head is here, and his feet are here. So again, the second time, I caught a glimpse, I was again coming up, and I saw a glimpse of the front. There's a Uttara Murti they take out for festivals. I saw that. But again, nothing. I didn't see the full deity at all, and was whooshed again all the way out, gone. The crowd went, lost my chance. And I was like, gosh, what is wrong with me? It's like, so I stayed the night there, and I tried again a third time in the morning. And I was early, and the queue was shorter, and I was earlier, and I was ready. And it was literally like, on your marks, get set. It's like, I got one thing, and it was like, I went up, and I'm going to see you. And you go up. This time he gave me about 10 full seconds when I was there. I think he must have, the priest recognized that he'd seen me before. But this time I had longer to stay, and I saw. But that was it. I saw him and I left, and I was so happy. But going away reflecting on that, it was like, it's enough to see and be seen. That's enough. It's just the privilege of taking darshan just means to be beheld, to see and be seen. Now, all the rest may or may not. You might get lucky with your prayers, your requests, whatever. But it got peeled back for me. It was just, I see you. Thank you. And that was it. So that was the first one. Darshan is just about being seen. In this exchange of I see you and you see me. And there's that connection that crosses over beyond all the everyday identities that you have, the family, your financial worries, your emotional dramas, everything that's going on in your life. It just stops and it's like, I see you. And there's that connection to a whole different reality, and you're gone. And that's the opportunity. The second one was actually here that I didn't show you. Here he is. He's lying on the side. And I was looking, he's like, I think about 8, is it meters or feet? But he's very, very long deity. And I was looking somehow in here, and I saw this deity on the second time. But it took the third time for me to actually look in the right place and to see. All right, the next one, famous. Jagannatha. Again, we talk about the taking darshan of the Lord, that it's an exchange. You see and see. But Jagannatha is special because you can't miss him. It's like you couldn't miss these enormous eyes. Except my story with this is when I visited Jagannath Puri, where there is the famous, Jagannath temple. And it was a 22-hour train journey, and I have contact lens, and I'm quite blind, like -9 and -8. And I lost the contact lens on the train. So I arrived in Jagannath Puri blind. And again, it was just, anyway, we save you the drama, but the point was, I ended up getting glasses within a couple of days, but I couldn't see anything. I remember panicking and thinking, just follow the crowd, see the yellow thing, which would be a rickshaw, and say the name of the hotel. Now, I didn't realize the hotel was called Hotel Gandhari. Does anybody know who Gandhari is? I didn't see the joke at the time. But Gandhari's a famous personality in the Mahabharata who's married to King Dhritarashtra, and she's blind. She volunteers to have her eyes blinded, not to, upstage her husband, because she has kind of powers of sight. Anyway, wasn't that an irony? So anyway, when I got into the rickshaw, and I'm petrified, because in India I think I stand in a hole, I can't, it's not familiar, it's dangerous. But I saw Jagannath everywhere, because he was on the back, in the rickshaw, on the back of the rickshaw. When I, everywhere I went, even in the hotel, there was a Jagannath. I saw him, and I'm blind. So darshan of Jagannath is this generous, unclosing eyes. It's a universal stare, and he's unique too in the sense that he's traveling now all over the world with these Ratha Yatra festivals, and the deity comes out to give darshan to whoever. You couldn't miss him. So that idea of the constancy and the universality, doesn't matter who you are, caste, gender, creed, the view is there, interestingly enough, because you cannot get into the Jagannath temple in Puri as a white person. Geographically, you're not allowed. But it doesn't matter, because they've put a Patita Pavana, another Jagannath, on the door where you can do. So you take darshan of Jagannath. And again, my experiences was, even though I was blinded, he was everywhere. In taxis, in rickshaws, and in the opticians. There was a huge big, when I finally got my eyes fixed. So, the constancy, even though it's a reciprocation, this thing, the hiding, making things invisible, is from our side, not from the Lord's. Another, this one, Here, this is a deity of Krishna from Udupi. Has anybody been to? Yes? Have you been there? Anybody been to see this in Karnataka? No? Okay, it's a 13th century. I think the temple is maybe 16th century, but Madhvacharya is the great acharya there from the 13th century. And it's the Krishna, the little boy Krishna, is the deity that's, people take darshan there. And it's interesting, some people, might question the whole idea of visiting temples, like we spoke about in the Vedic text, or the insights of the seers. They saw sarvam kalavidam Brahman, everything is Brahman. Why do you need to go to a temple to see a deity or a murti? Isn't, the divine, God is everywhere. But in answer to that, Pillai Lokacharya, who is a great scholar, theologian, and devotee in the Sri Vaishnava tradition, writes a very nice explanation of why it is we do this. He writes of the grace by which the Lord enters and dwells in the image for the sake of the devotee. And he writes, this is the greatest grace of the Lord, that being free, he becomes bound. Being independent, he becomes dependent for all his service to his devotee. In other forms, the man belonged to God. But behold the supreme sacrifice of Ishvara. Here, the Almighty becomes the property of the devotee. He carries him about. He fans him, feeds him, plays with him. The infinite has become finite, that the child's soul may grasp, understand, and love him. So it's a beautiful way of saying that, no, it's not that you're limiting the Lord, this idea of sarvam kalavidam Brahman, everything is the Lord. This is not limiting to him, but it's a personal mercy or grace that an exchange, a give and take, may take place. And that's probably one of the reasons it's become one of the most popular practices, despite your theological or philosophical preferences. And we see this as something I've noticed has increased. A lot of people in Vrindavan, when I went to, are carrying a little baby Gopal now. Is that something here in the West? Is also? Yes, they have a whole basket and they carry him around. It's become a big thing in Vrindavan. So yeah, coming towards the end now. This is a poem I've included because I thought it was beautiful. Interestingly, it's from Surdas, who was blind. So he's a blind poet, 16th century, from Braj in Vrindavan. And here, the idea that vision or sight can actually come through the ears or the heart because he was born blind. So Gopal has stolen my heart, my friend. He stole through my eyes and invaded my breast. Simply by looking, who knows how he did it? Mother, father, husband, brothers, others crowded the courtyard, filled my world, and society and scripture monitored the door. But nothing was enough to guard my heart. So again, this idea of our many identities, mother, father, brother, things, we got so much going on in our lives, but just right to the heart, connection with the deity is there. One more I thought I'd show you. This is Hanuman. And this is near Trichy, also in a place called Namakkal. Anybody been to Namakkal?
I was born there.
Oh, you were born in Namakkal. Ah, wonderful. It's about how far? 7 miles more? 20?
So from Tiruchirappalli about 45 miles or something.
From Trichy.
Yeah, I remember getting it. It didn't seem too long.
About 45, 50
2
miles.
hours.
Oh, 2 hours. Okay, my memory fades me then. I don't remember. But anyway, so about 2 hours in a bus from Trichy. Wonderful. Do you know this deity?
I've been there.
Wonderful. It was back in 2009 I went. This is a deity of Hanuman. How big is it? It's like huge. You'll see by the size of the priests pouring is a vast sized deity.
No ceiling there.
Huh?
There's no ceiling for the height.
Exactly, there's no ceiling, and that's what struck me. It's out in a village, and back in 2009, it was like I was sitting in a field, And there's no temple. It's just people gathered for the artis. And this was an abhishek. They do it daily. And I show this because, and maybe we could turn the light off to see it more clearly. Because if you describe taking darshan of a deity during abhishek, it doesn't make any sense. You come to the limits of your reasoning. It's like you have to experience it. Something shifts in the experience of just being there. And I can say that's how I felt when I was lucky enough to sit here. So I'll play. It's just very short. Okay. So that was, it takes place about half an hour. You're just mesmerized, listening to music, watching the deity. And yeah, I remember the experiences was of stopping all, it's like you stepped out of everyday reality and you're in this extraordinary space of watching Hanuman being poured over with yogurt and honey and abhishek materials. But in the leaving, in the experience of it, something lifted. There's a transformation takes place. You can't describe it, and how long it lasts is another question, but it happened and it was real. And so again, it's like the surface reality of something like this is not explicable by ordinary sight, by ordinary language, but the sense of the transformation can be felt. It's an indefinable. Okay, the last slide then is just to draw together some of these points, is that darshan, the word comes from to see. There's 3 levels of sight included in that reality: ordinary vision, seeing beneath surface realities, to the spiritual underpinning. And thirdly, the exchange, this I see you being beheld and being seen by the gaze of the Lord, that is nurtured by the narratives in the Puranas, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and practiced today in temples all over the world. When we say taking darshan of the deity, it actually expands a little bit more than that, because also the tirtha, the place where the deity, you take darshan of that sacred place also. In Varanasi, in Mathura, or in Haridwar, there's a sacredness imbued in the sight of the deity also. And thirdly, you take darshan of the person, the sadhu, the drashtu, those who have seen through it, the wise people. Because why? Why do you take darshan? Because they are the carriers of the narrative. The stories, the teachings are embedded in their understanding and in their behavior. So in one sense, they're carrying the deity in another form. So those 3, taking darshan, it's like expands beyond the deity itself. It's the place of the deity and the person, the sadhu, the sage, the sant. And interesting, you're all familiar with the term tirtha. To go to tirtha yatra, go on, pilgrimage, you could say. It includes all of these. And the term tirtha means to cross over. It means, and it's that same idea as darshan. You cross over ordinary reality. You make a journey, you make an effort to try and get beyond and to connect with, to interconnect with the deeper sense of who you are and what this world is made of, and that you're not alone in the universe. And just like that peekaboo child is just like, I see you, and now I don't. Why? Because I've got hands over my eyes, but I see you. And the practice of darshan at the temples, you could say, is it's the practice of devotional peekaboo, except it's an exchange, a very personal, mutual exchange between the Lord and his devotee. Okay, I think that's all I have to say. Please, any questions? Any enhancements, any stories? Be very grateful.
Okay. Thank you for a really fantastic talk. I'm really happy and impressed. Two little things, if I may.
Yeah.
You talked about the different types of philosophy, the different schools.
Yeah.
And there's this term, drishtikon. No? That's well known. But if you look at Western modern social science, we actually use the same, and we now congratulate ourselves for having discovered, inter whatever, yeah? Situation, specificity, and so on. So I'm simply trying to say, yes, this is all Indology as a specialist subject, but it's not specialist. It's universal, but we just use different languages.
Thank you.
No? That's one thing. The other thing is, we had here Satvika, no? Yeah? And she talked also about this interconnectedness between us and nature and all these things. Yeah? So you talked about drishta, adrishta. Yeah? But Satvika talked also about Rita and Satya.
Yes.
Same thing.
That's that order. There's this cosmic order of giving and taking, of exchange.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like
No?
for everything that's given, you recognize it and you make reciprocation. You give back. You give back. And that's the big thing. You even see that in the Gita. The whole chapter 3 of the Gita said, those who take these without recognition is a thief. It's this idea that there are so many invisible givens. And the Hindu tradition is like really opens our eyes about this. Like we said, the 5 Panchayagyas, just reminding us who to be grateful for, of teachers, our ancestors, our creature of our fellow people around us, and just awareness, opening, expanding our context of who we are. We do not exist in isolation. Nobody does. If you think you do, you're shrinking your understanding of yourself, and you're losing sight of the bigger, real picture. What does it mean to truly see? It means to see what your identity is, who you are, but it's always in relation to other people. And sorry, just to go on your point, and you talked about sociology, and I sometimes read popular books on quantum physics, and I have no idea what it's about, but it makes me feel like it's interesting. I like the popular, what's his name, Carlo Rovelli? He writes these books on the nature of reality at the quantum level. I don't understand most of what he writes beautifully, but one thing I loved was when he said he reduced it to 3 simple things, and that made me happy. If you can reduce quantum physics to 3 simple things, and it's like, number 1, he says, everything is made up of stuff. It's little granular things, there's little somethings. Fine, who cares? Number 2, the second thing is that there's no set laws. Everything is probabilistic. It's probably this and it's probably that. There's no set laws. Great. And he says the trickiest one is this, and we don't understand it. He says at the most quantum, invisible level reality, everything is relational. It's like they don't understand how. Like when a light or a particle can appear as a wave or a light or a particle, it can appear differently by how somebody is looking at it. They don't understand the interaction or the influence of simply by observing a particle, how it can shift. They also don't understand how distance can influence a particle, but it can. But the answer is that there's a relational reality. It made me think of, the interconnected web, this image of the spider's web. There are visible and invisible connections to everything. And yes, we don't have the ability, and perhaps maybe never will have the ability in science to grasp everything. But this is what the Hindu traditions recognize, this interconnected existence. So I liked what you said.
Can I add one little thing? This triangle is absolutely amazing. And you seem to have the eye in the middle as a sort of universal element in all of this. It's ever present. It's always there, no? I was a comparative lawyer. I taught Hindu law, but also theorized law itself. I've added a corner at the bottom, namely the universe. So whatever person, whatever place, whatever deity, there's always the universe. But you have the universe in the eye.
Yeah, in the
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay. Any more questions?
Lovely to see you, Anuradha.
You too.
And to behold you and to be beheld. And that is the essence of the practical essence of our faith. And I wanted to ask you that how would, you touched on it partly by saying that it's having the grace or the humility to be able to see this and take out all the bits that cover you from your senses, from your mind, and then have a rational approach to, instead of an emotive approach, a rational approach to seeing every divinity in everybody. And is that the interconnectedness of what you're saying, that we are actually connected, obviously through our atmas, to everybody else. And that is also the essence of our Hindu faith, of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So therefore, as an example, like we do namaste because my atma is meeting your atma and we are related. Perhaps you can explore that a bit.
So why don't we see? Why can't we see this interconnection? It's a
more?
great question. It's like,
How can you see more?
yeah, how can we see no more? But I mean, go back to the gorilla thing where I put in the beginning. It's like we missed a gorilla. It's like a gorilla walked past and you just say, did not. But actually, why can't we see more? Because we're too busy with our preconditioned understanding of what the way the world is, how people should be, how I should be, what I expect from my life. It's all preconditions. We're in our box. And again, the lesson I learned from, I learned it then, whether I remember it is another thing, but when I went to Sri Rangam was just let it go. All the things I thought I needed to say this, I needed to ask for this was what I was going to do, the plan, I was going to do. And in the end, it was just show up. Just let it go. And actually, that's when I was given the darshan, is when I just let them go. Let those preconceptions, those categorizations that we constantly do, and just behold another person. And that's, again, the practice. I mean, in all Hindu traditions, there's different ways of doing it, but the principle is the same, is recognizing that reality is one of reciprocation and exchange. And this doesn't mean necessarily superimposing one theistic idea on the whole of tradition, whether it's the impersonal Advaitin tradition where everything is one, or whether it's the devotional tradition where it's oneness in relationship. That doesn't matter. It's like in the Gita says in chapter 4:11, it says, Ye tamam prapadyante tam stateva bhajamiyaham. Accordingly as you approach me, I reciprocate accordingly. In other words, I give you what you want. So whoever you want to see me as, I'm there for you as that. But all of it is recognizing, all of Hindu tradition recognizes there's something more than surface realities. And our not seeing it is because we put the hands over our eyes. It's like Jagannatha, he's the constant, the eyes are open. But it's us with our things. So, now I see it, now I don't. Well, why don't I? Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. That's just how can we see more? It's a practice. It's like dust on the mirror. You know, dust gathers on the mirror. If you don't dust every day, do something to help dust the mirror. That's what the texts tell us. But then what tradition you belong to, what disciplines you have, there are many. But they all have the same goal. It's to scrub the mind and the heart of those, you know, clutterings, of those hands that we can't see the gorilla in the room because we're too busy with our hands over our head. This is, you know, I got to count the balls, I got to count my money, I got to see that I do this, I got to do this. But hang on, there's a bigger picture. There's a bigger picture. We're a bigger person. We're a bigger part of something much bigger. Yeah, and we shrink all the time. So it's as much a work for me as you, but, you know, whatever your inspiration, go to it daily and do a little dusting.
Okay, so I have one question for you. We normally associate Darshan with the Bhakti tradition. When I was young, my mother used to say, "Chal mandire jaye, darshan karwa." And that has always been the link for me of darshan is with bhakti, i.e. going to a temple, compartmentalizing it for that session, if you like, that exercise. Now, earlier you mentioned the 6 systems of Hindu philosophy. Where is bhakti the most prevalent amongst those 6 systems?
Very good question. Well, it kind of threads through it. Sankhya and Yoga, you find those in the Gita, and you'll find it in the Bhagavad Purana, and Vedanta. So the Upanishads, the idea of the one, like the idea of the spider and the web, the one emanating creation. So that idea is there in the Upanishads. And then the Puranas will put faces or teachings through Shiva, through Devi, or through Vishnu on that same teaching. And then the traditions will come to those scriptures, and they will be Advaitin traditions, or they will be Bhakti traditions, or they will be both. It's not a black and white thing, which is very interesting, and I love this. It's like it's not something you can say, oh, you're this or you're that. It's actually the shifting of the heart at different times, and it's not for one person to categorize people. It's not as simple as that. It's a little bit more mixed. We even have the example of Shankaracharya, the great, profound philosopher on the Advaitin, or one that everything is Brahman. And it doesn't, he stressed the singing of there is dispute over whether he did compose it, but the tradition says he sang Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda. To sing this song is better solution than to be working things out with, grammatical study, and what good will that do to you? Just Bhaja Govinda, Bhaja Govinda. So the place is there, even within that tradition of bhakti, of just rising above the smaller categorizations. So in answer to your question, I think mostly then it's Sankhya, Yoga, and the Vedantic traditions that actually, weave their way through the Puranas and the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads as well. But then how the traditions derive the personal or impersonal, that's up to them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, any more? Okay, so could we please have a big round of applause for Anuradha?
Thank you.